Hey guys, welcome to my first ever champion guide. Today I'm going to be doing Zed, the Master of Shadows. First I want to talk about summoner spells. The most typical and usual summoner spells you will see a Zed going is Flash and Ignite. Sometimes you can take Teleport, sometimes you can take Heal or Exhaust, but usually you'll see Flash and Ignite. For masteries for Zed, I like to run 2190, and for runes, I like to go 2 Lifesteal Quintessences, 1 attack damage, magic resist blues, armor yellows, and attack damage reds. Alright, so moving on to Zed's abilities. Usually you want to max his Q first since it is your ranged attack. Then you want to move on and max your E because it is your area of effect damage and it's slow as well. And then you want to max your W because it does reduce the cost and the cooldown of your shadow. And of course, you want to max your ultimate whenever you can, which is level 6, 11, and 16. Now that you know which order to max them in, I'll talk about his abilities a little bit more in depth. Zed's passive is Contempt for the Weak, and whenever Zed auto-attacks an enemy below 50% health, he deals additional 6, 8, or 10% of their maximum health as magic damage. This amount is also increased at level 7 and level 17, and the effects cannot occur on the same target more than once every 10 seconds. So Zed's Q very simply is Razor Shuriken, and basically, Zed and his shadows throw their shurikens, each dealing physical damage to the first enemy they pass through, and reduce damage to the enemies that are behind that first target. So probably the most useful part of Zed's kit, besides his ultimate, is his W, which is Living Shadow. And the active on that ability is he throws out a shadow, and it stays in place for about 4 seconds, and you can reactivate the ability to switch places with that shadow. And not only that, but the shadow will also mimic Zed's basic abilities, so if he uses his Q, Shadow also uses his Q. If he uses his E, then Shadow also uses his E. Unfortunately, Shadow can't throw out another shadow, but, you know. So Zed's E is an AoE burst of physical damage that deals damage to nearby enemies. It's called Shadow Slash, and it reduces the cooldown of Living Shadow by 1 second for each enemy that it hits. His shadows also mimic this ability, and when they use it, it slows enemies, and overlapping shadows, meaning if you walk on top of an enemy with you and your shadow, it increases the slow, and it also restores energy. Zed's ultimate is Deathmark, and it is by far the best part of his kit and a lot of fun to use. You can make some crazy outplays with it too. So what happens is Zed becomes untargetable and dashes to an enemy champion. He then marks the target for death and spawns a living shadow at his starting position. That shadow lasts for 6 seconds and mimics Zed's abilities just like his W. Reactivating Deathmark will cause Zed to switch positions with his shadow, and after 3 seconds the Deathmark will detonate, dealing physical damage equal to 100% of Zed's attack damage, plus a certain percentage of the damage he dealt during the time that the mark was active. So for items for Zed, I usually like to start out with a longsword and 3 health pots and a warding totem, but you can swap that out for boots of speed and 4 health potions. When I go back for my first buy, I usually either go for a pickaxe or a brutalizer or Tiamat, and a sweeping lens if I can. Because in Season 5, you know, Zed's items have been changed a little bit, you know, his attack speed was a little bit nerfed, and you have to change your items a little bit because of that. So for boots, it depends on really who you're going up against. A lot of times I like to go for boots of mobility, because assassins are really good when they can move around a lot and they can roam. Merc Treads are usually good against, you know, mid laners, since a lot of mid laners are AP mages and stuff, but if you're going against AD, you can absolutely grab Ninja Tabi. And as for core for Zed, usually you want to go for Ravenous Hydra, Youmuu's Ghostblade, and Last Whisper to get rid of some of that armor. If you want to survive a little bit longer, have a little bit more bonus AD, or if you want to have, you know, some magic resist or armor, then you can probably go for Maw of Malmortius if you want to go for some of that magic resist. Then you can do Bloodthirster if you really want to be aggressive. Also, Guardian Angel is really good for going aggressive, and Randuin's Omen is really good for getting, you know, enemies off of your back, and especially AD champions, because it does provide you with a lot of armor and a lot of health. So a good example build that I would have for Zed is starting with Boots of Mobility, Then move on to Ravenous Hydra, Yomu's Ghostblade, Last Whisper, Maw of Malmortius, Guardian Angel, and an Oracle's Lens. In terms of tips and tricks for Zed, I have a couple, and one of the most basic ones that I have for new Zed players is learning the combo RWR. And it only really works if you have your ultimate up, but it's really nice. It's for getting away and, just outplaying your opponents if they're focusing you really, really heavily in team fights. So what happens is you use your ultimate, preferably in some kind of brush or, someplace where you can't be seen, and you can use your W, reactivate your W, and run away. And if your team's if the team's following you in one big group, it makes it really easy to juke them and outplay. So then once you're far away with your W, then you can reactivate your R, and you can get away really, really easily. It's surprising how well this works. And if your team can follow up, then it makes it even better. Now the one point of this combo is you're not using your ultimate to kill somebody, you're not using it to assassinate. You're using it as utility, since you become not only untargetable, but it also gives you a little bit of extra distance between you and the enemy team. Good times to use this are when you're low on health, or if your enemy is at full health and they can kill you. Other tricks for Zed: using your W, you can jump over walls like Dragon, Baron. It also grants vision, and you can use it to safely poke your opponents and do damage and see what they're doing without taking damage because your W mimics all of your abilities. Another tip I have for Zed is when you're going to use your ultimate and you're going to all-in a champion, then you should first use your R, right? Then, since your shadow is going to be spawning behind the enemy, use your E right away, because that'll slow them. And then, once you've slowed them and say they maybe used Flash or something, then you can either use your W to catch up, or you can, if they're really close, then you can use your Q and finish them off. I wouldn't recommend using your W unless you know that you're not going to be ganked from behind, because it does make it a little bit harder to get out if you take a little bit too long to kill them, and then your R shadow just despawns. Then you don't really have an escape if you've already used your W besides Flash. A couple of good harass combos. Your WE combo is a very, very good harass tool, and it slows them, and you follow up with your Q. But it should only be used if you know that you're not in danger, because your W is basically your only method of escape besides your ultimate or Flash. So you should be careful when using it, especially if you're very pushed up in lane. Other than that, use your Q to harass your opponent, and you can use it to get farm from a safe distance. Another tip I have is to make good use of Zed's passive. And his passive is Contempt for the Weak, and you do extra damage to targets who have less than 50% health. If you can all-in somebody who is less than 50% health, you're going to do a little bit more damage with auto attacks, so make sure you use them. Also, this makes CSing a lot more convenient. So if you can CS when they're below 50% health, which you normally do, then it makes it much easier to get CS, and you can get a lot more CS than your opponent with Zed, I find. His wave clear is pretty astonishing, especially when you use your W, E, Q combo, and then you can just auto the rest, use your Ravenous Hydra to clean it up, and then you can keep pushing. When you're assassinating targets, try to look for squishy targets, like an AD carry, usually squishy. Don't take too much damage from them, but they're usually squishy. Look out for your Sonas, Sorakas, typical squishy people. A good tip to playing Zed is you should use him as a split pusher as well as an assassin. So you should be looking for picks, but if you get the opportunity, then you should obviously go push down a lane. You should try to get tower, because you do have a good escape, which is not only your W, but you also have Flash, you have ultimate, and it makes it easy to outplay your opponents and get away without a scratch. Lastly, I just want to say Zed's job, and Zed's job in a team fight is basically to jump in, get to the back line, assassinate targets really, really quickly, and then get out, preferably with your ultimate or Flash or W, and try not to take a whole lot of damage, but try to deal as much damage as you possibly can. And try not to focus tanks, try not to focus, people like Nautilus, Nasus, Leona, Malphite, unless they're, very, very low health. Obviously, if you can kill them, try to, but don't be greedy about it. So that's the end of my Zed guide. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and I'll definitely upload some more content. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.